And it requires a systemic change in how you do architecture. It's not just an instance of an architecture, and requires long-term corporate commitment to be successful. So if you get into an organization and you don't have the commitment at the C level, at the budget, and the money, you shouldn't do it. You're not going to be successful. That's my guidance. Okay, you're going to have to spend a lot of dough to fix this problem. You're going to get huge payback and benefits if you're able to pull it off, but only if you're able to take it to its logical conclusion. It's not a lot of little tactical things. Okay, service-oriented architecture is a long journey that's made up with a lot of projects. And if you think we're going to do something in 6 months and have a SOA and have all your issues solved, it just doesn't work that way. It's going to take a long-term systemic change in how you do architecture, and also it's going to be a bit of change of thinking in how we want to deploy systems. And hopefully we get to a point where we're going to stop bolting things on and expecting that things are going to improve. It doesn't work that way. You may get short-term gain, long-term loss. Okay. We'll get to questions in a bit. So here's what you do. So instead of me telling you everything that's wrong with it and say, hey, here's 5 things to avoid, here's how you build one of these things. And if you've seen my presentations and going back to the same methodology and the same slides, first thing you do, define your ROI. Just go through this thing. You got slides, you got my methodology, follow it. It'll work for you each and every time. Understand your business objectives, define success, create an ROI, create a business case out of the situation. And then you make a decision as whether or not you should go or no go. What's the value? Can we define it? If we can't, then we shouldn't do it. If I can't explain it to my boss or my sponsor or my client in a clear, defined term that this is a benefit that they should move forward, we shouldn't move forward because we can't define it yet. Define your problem domain. Don't try to boil the ocean. This is a project-level thing. Even though this is a large-scale systemic change, you're going to have to take this thing a bite at a time, just like you eat an elephant. So do system complexity analysis, and now's the time to do a POC. Because everybody wants to get the ESBs in there and the app servers in there and the governance tools in there and all that stuff. Now's the time to do it. Bring them all in, set up a lab, center of excellence, look at the tools and see what's doing. Do not put those things in production yet. Okay, you evaluate the technology and then you put it into production later in the process, and I'll show you where. We're just learning about them so we can consider the technology in context of the design, in context of the architecture. Because you can't really design, it's almost like designing something without understanding the tools and you're going to use to build it. So we have to understand the tools before we actually build and design the architecture. It just makes sense. Understand all applications, semantics in your domain, information. Okay, I always like to start with the information first. If you guys are process to services to information, that's fine. I like moving from data to services to information. So we have a SOA metadata, data abstraction layer, data services layer. And this goes to the presentation from the gentleman from Pfizer you saw today, which basically took the same approach. He worked up from the information, created a metadata architecture, and then all the way up into the services layer. Then we define the services. What services are there? APIs, transactions, screens, things that we can define as service externalization points. How do we bring that behavior out of these existing systems? We create a service catalog, create candidate services out of that. Metadata, performance analysis to make sure we're not smoking something and that we're going to be able to do services at a rate which is going to serve our end user needs. All that analysis occurs here. Understand your processes. Same as services, candidate processes. Okay? What are they? What are automated? What's not automated? What has to do with human beings? What doesn't have to do with human beings? Don't get into the whole business process integration stuff, choreography versus orchestration. Who cares? We'll figure that out later. What we need to at this stage, decide what's going on within the organization that we can drive and understand and document as to how the processes are running. Candidate processes, processes bound to the services, and process integration diagrams. So we take the data, we bind it to the services, and we bind the services to the processes. And that's how you build an SOA. You're almost done, okay? And by the way, this is 3 years later, but you're almost done. Then you define your new services. Service definition, service design, service implementation. Because obviously there's going to be a delta between the services we're able to discover and catalog and the services they actually need for the end state SOA. And this is the fun part, because we can build the services correctly. You'll find that when you're externalizing services from existing systems, you have to make certain compromises. Because while you can redesign the services from the points of externalization, you really can't go back into the old DB2 COBOL stuff and start monkeying around with that without causing a lot of trouble and also causing a lot of expense. But these things you can design from the ground up and design them correctly. Then you define your new processes, and then you select your technology. So notice we didn't put this at step 1. So we understand we had a data level understanding, a semantic level understanding, we have a service level understanding, and we have a process level understanding. We've designed all our new services. We've designed how those services interact with processes, how those processes and services interact with data. We understand performance. We understand the existing technology we're going to use. Okay? It's called architecture. Now we're ready to move forward. We pick our technology set. We have our requirements, candidate technology, technology analysis, select it, validate it, and you're ready to go. And by the way, this is an iterative process. You're going to go back to the beginning or back to other steps as you go through the journey. So once you go through this isn't a one-time deal. Then you're going to loop back again, loop back again, loop back again, loop back again, until things are changing for the better within your organization, within your enterprise. It's pretty simple. Now, I think if you locked us all in the room and I asked everybody to write down a service-oriented architecture methodology for building it, I think it would be plus or minus 20% of that. Because it's common sense. It's common sense when you get right down to it. And ultimately, it is something that we need to pay more attention to. So, in summarizing, SOA is good. Reminds from Animal House. Remember that? The statue said knowledge is good. SOA is good. Pay me now, pay me later. Make sure you do get right the first time, get the help you need. Okay? If you think you're going to create magic without the talent and the money and the budget and the urgency and the desire, it's just not going to happen. You need to have that before you're able to be successful. Don't be afraid to experiment. Admit you're wrong. Back up and try again. One of the things that I deal with lots of Global 2000 organizations that are going through this process. If they make a mistake, that's fine. We learn something. I mean, we're all cutting the ground here. Okay, this is new area we're getting into. So obviously we're going to make some mistakes, and it's okay as long as you don't make too many. Keep your vendors working with you. Vendors are good people. Okay, I was a CTO of 3 vendors in my career, and they're interested in making you successful. A lot of people have 2 ways they deal with vendors. Number one, they consider them inherently evil, and they keep them out at arm's length. They don't let them in at any point in time. They filter information to them, and they throw RFPs over it until proposals come back, or they hold them in too close, and they're sitting in the architectural board meetings, okay, which is way too close. You need to inject them at point in time where they can add value, they can understand what you're trying to accomplish, and then make sure they are aligning their technology with the ways in which you're trying, or the problems that you're looking to try to solve. And they're interested in, believe it or not, they're more interested in making you successful because they get more brownie points from that than they are in just throwing technology over the chasm and selling technology. Empower those working so they can get the work done. Avoid politics, if possible. Here we go again. I once had a project scuttled because I didn't talk to a guy named Charlie. And I don't know who Charlie was, but evidently Charlie made all the decisions about who used their network. And that was a bad thing. Learn all you can, but don't be caught up in the hype. Don't manage my magazine. I write some great articles, but I don't know anything about your problem domain. So you have to understand your own problem domain and figure out how your technology fits. This isn't a hype-driven kind of a thing. Put standards in their proper place. One of the things, and I blogged about this over and over again, we have a tendency to wait for standards to emerge. And the reality is standards are just like any other technology. They're going to change, emerge, they're going to show up, they're going to go away. Standards are rather confusing right now. Okay? If you can leverage them, you should leverage them. Okay, but I would not put them on the critical path. Your architecture is on the critical path, not using the standards. That's a very politically incorrect thing to say, but let me tell you, I got a lot of people that I've seen miss a lot of opportunities because they waited for standards to emerge, and the standards never emerged. In fact, they just kind of went away. A lot of those things are designed by committee. A lot of them are going to have value. Most of them are not. Small battles win the war. Keep that in mind. We already talked about project level stuff. Give yourself plenty of time. Never skimp on any of the steps I gave you. And that's it. We'll do